Hey guys, welcome to MacReddit. Today, I have compiled some of the most interesting Reddit stories for you. Let's dive into them without wasting any time. I, 30-year-old female, got married 3 years ago and spent around $150,000 on the ceremony. And the amount mainly came from my parents' savings, and I contributed around 40% of it. My elder brother Aaron, 45-year-old male, strongly objected to the lavish ceremony, and for the same reason, didn't attend the wedding. He went on to call me a white elephant for our parents. Aaron's daughter, 26-year-old female, was getting married 2 months ago, but his savings were not enough to finance a lavish ceremony. So, he came to me to borrow $30,000 for the wedding expenses, but I refused to lend him the money because he already had $120,000 in his account. I also didn't give him the money because he objected to my lavish wedding and didn't attend the ceremony. I then told my brother that I might not attend his daughter's wedding. Upon hearing this, he became very angry and accused me of being selfish. He said he understood why I didn't lend him the money and why I wasn't attending his daughter's wedding. He tried to explain that he objected to spending on my wedding because our parents needed the money more. He claimed that if our parents hadn't spent that money on my lavish wedding, our father might not have died of cancer, and I could have used that money to start a business instead of working for someone else. Here, my brother lied about our father's death. At the time of my wedding, our father was completely healthy, and his reports were clear. Our father was diagnosed with cancer a year and a half after my wedding. I clearly told him that he objected to spending money on my wedding out of jealousy, and now he was willing to take out a loan for an extravagant ceremony. At that time, I didn't know my father would get cancer, and we would be in a difficult situation a year and a half later. Like any other human being, I couldn't predict the future. However, my brother continued insisting that I lend him money. However, I didn't budge an inch, so finally, he left disappointed. Although our father's death was a nightmare for all of us, my brother's objection to my lavish wedding had nothing to do with his death. He just didn't want our parents to spend on me. I had not expected this from my brother, as he was my only brother, and we had been very close before his marriage. After my refusal, my brother secured a personal loan from a bank at an interest rate of 9%, and suddenly, he lost his job. Now, the bank is pressuring him to pay back the loan, and this mounting pressure has led him to depression and then to the hospital. My mother, 67-year-old female, cursed me for sending my brother to the hospital. I went to the hospital to see him, but I don't think I am responsible for his hospitalization. Rather, he is responsible for all of this. Now, my mother, and above all my husband, wants me to pay back my brother's loan and help him find a new job. I am totally confused and cannot decide what is right and what is wrong and what I should do. A bunch of questions and contrasting feelings ran across my brain whenever I remember this event, or perhaps incident. Was my refusal to lend money to Aaron a wrong decision? And was this decision an overreaction? Should I pay back for my brother's loan? OP is not an AH. OP's brother is a jerk and a hypocrite. At OP's wedding, her parents spent on the wedding because they could afford it, but OP's brother is arranging a lavish wedding ceremony for his daughter by taking loans. It is strange and nonsensical. It is clear that OP is not responsible for his hospitalization when he is the one who chose to take on debt for the wedding. If he could not afford to spend on his daughter's wedding, why did he take loans? OP's mother is being unreasonable, and the weirdest character in this story is OP's husband. Let's now move on to r/pro revenge, where a landlord refuses to sell a house to OP's friends at the price agreed upon by his late mother. In response, OP and his friends enact a pro-revenge plan against the landlord. My best friend and her husband rented a 4-bedroom rundown house in an expensive city for $400 per week. The owner, a wealthy old lady who was fond of my friend, froze the rent for 5 years and promised to sell them the house once they had saved enough for a bank loan. They saved diligently, but unfortunately, the old lady passed away before anything was on paper. The new owners of the property were the lady's 4 children, each extremely wealthy in their own right. They inherited a large portfolio of properties. When they initially spoke to my friends, they assured them that the sale would proceed, but they would have to wait until probate had settled. My friends were confident, and they began renovating the property. When probate was settled, my friends applied for a loan, but their application was refused because the owners had increased the asking price by $80,000. without informing my friends. To make matters worse, the house would soon be listed on the open market. In just 7 days, an open house was scheduled, and given the current market conditions, it was likely to sell quickly. My friends were devastated. They might be able to borrow enough, but it would take longer than a week to get the money. Another problem was that property prices had increased, causing rents to rise, while theirs remained frozen. They were worried about finding an affordable place with more than 2 bedrooms if they were asked for a higher rent or faced eviction. I was scared for my friends, but I was also furious. The greedy lessers were among the richest people in the city, yet they were exploiting a struggling family. Their actions were driven by pure greed, as they had no real need for the money. It was evident that they had orchestrated this situation from the start. As my friends scrambled to gather the money, I began plotting. I researched tips on how to facilitate a sale. The goal was to make the property unappealing without tarnishing my friends' reputation as tenants. We moved all the furniture in from the walls, added some extra furniture, borrowed ornaments, and hung a load of motorcycle memorabilia on the walls. The place felt smaller. My friend boiled a head of cabbage on the stove, and we sprayed ammonia around the front and back doors because it smelled like all the neighborhood cats had been marking their territory. We also poured 24 rotten eggs down the drain to make it smell like sewer gas. We acquired a moldy old couch and placed it in the front yard of our neighbor across the road, with their permission, of course. We started calling friends for help. Anybody with a loud and crappy car was asked to do a few laps in front of the block during the open day. The street was unusually busy that day. Everyone we knew found a reason to drive by. It was practically rush hour. We called out mates from the rugby club. A big portion of our club are very large men. The next door neighbor set up a BBQ in their front yard, and we offered free food and cheap beer. They came on motorcycles wearing their roughest gear. There was quite a crowd. On the open day, a lot of people showed up, but most of them were in and out within minutes, and no one made an offer. My friends were the only ones to make an offer, and they got the house. They still had to pay more than they had planned, but not as much as the greedy bastards wanted. The owners had not visited the house much, so they thought that was how their house and the neighborhood were. They could not notice that my friends had made their property look worse than it was. What a revenge. However, it was not perfect because your friends bought the house at a price higher than the owner's mom had agreed to. Best of luck to your friends for the new house. What is the opinion of Mac Reddit fans about the revenge? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoy the stories I bring you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries. Welcome to Am I the AH, where OP's ex-wife, who has recently converted to Islam, demands their daughter to wear a hijab. When OP learns about it, he confronts his wife and makes it clear that she cannot force their daughter to follow a particular religion. However, OP's wife doesn't seem to budge from her stance. I, 37-year-old male, am an atheist, and I went through a divorce with my ex-wife, Deanna, now Inaya, when she converted to Islam 2 years ago. We have 2 children together, our daughter, Ava, 14F, and our son, Leo, 13M. I didn't want to separate from my wife. However, she was not ready to live with an atheist. When I insisted that we should try to save the marriage, my wife said that the only way to salvage it was for me to convert to Islam. This was not an easy decision for me. Adopting Islam was challenging because I had been an atheist for most of my life. Her conversion was painful for me as she distanced herself from me, refusing physical contact and speaking to me coldly as if I were a random stranger. After enduring this for 6 months, I agreed to a divorce as I could not bear it any longer. My ex-wife recently married a man named Adnan, and he is a pretty nice guy. He seems like a good match for my ex-wife because, like her, he follows religion strictly. My ex-wife and I share custody of the kids, with them living with me for 1 month and with my wife and her husband for the next month. Last week, when she dropped off the kids, I was surprised to see that our daughter was wearing a jilbab. However, I assumed she must have wanted to wear it and perhaps was considering converting to a different faith, so I didn't bring it up. I believe she's old enough to make her own decisions, and as an atheist myself, I support my children in choosing their beliefs. A few days ago, I was going to see a movie with my kids, but told them I had to finish some paperwork in my office first, which took about half an hour. When I walked back into the living room, our daughter was wearing one of our son's shirts and a pair of shorts. I was surprised to see my daughter in this outfit, because I thought she had chosen to wear more conservative clothing. When I asked what was going on, my son told me that she hated wearing those clothes and asked me to let her borrow some of his clothes. When I asked my daughter if it was true, she confirmed that she disliked the clothes her mom made her wear, and that her mom insisted she wear them all the time, even at my home. I asked her if she was sure about it, and she said yes. I checked her bag, and sure enough, it contained tank tops, underwear, and coverings, which cover the hair and body, but not the face. I took the kids on a quick Target trip before the movie to get my daughter some clothes of her liking. 2 days ago, when my ex-wife came by to pick up the kids, she flipped out on Jane for not wearing the traditional clothing. My ex and I got into a heated argument, and I told her that our daughter shouldn't have to wear the covering if she doesn't want to, especially because it's very hot in our city. My ex argued that she and the kids are now different and follow a stricter religion. I told her that she might be following a religion, and I don't care about it, but she has no right to force our children to follow a particular religion against their will. I told her that she should leave it up to our children and let them adopt the religion they want. After hearing this, my wife got defensive and left with the kids. I don't want to insult a religion, but I don't think my daughter should have to wear anything she doesn't want to. AITAH, OP is not an AH, and his ex-wife is in the wrong. She should not force a child to follow a particular religion. Instead, she should let her daughter decide what she wants to follow. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow with some more spicy fries. Welcome to Am I the A-hole, where a mom marries the father of her son's bully and compels him to leave home. The poor boy is now living with his grandparents. OP, the boy's aunt, stood up for him, and she refuses to attend her sister's wedding. My sister, 41-year-old female, is marrying her fiancé, Henry, 42-year-old male. I have decided not to attend the wedding because her fiancé is the father of my nephew's bully, and she has chosen him over my nephew. For context, my sister was previously married, but her husband passed away in a car accident. From her previous marriage, she has 3 children, a 14-year-old boy named Matt and 2 girls. After the death of her first husband, my sister entered into a relationship with her neighbor, who is now her fiancé. He has 4 children, a 16-year-old boy named Liam from his ex-girlfriend, and 3 children from his ex-wife. My nephew, Matt, has been having trouble with Liam, who has been bullying him. Liam teased Matt about his appearance, specifically his crooked nose and dark skin color. As a result of this teasing, other students began to join in, and Matt soon became a laughing stock in school. When Liam saw that there was no one to stop him, he started physically bullying my nephew. One day, Liam and some of his friends even pushed him off the roof, resulting in my nephew being admitted to the hospital for a week. However, my sister and her boyfriend, now fiancé, didn't involve the police by manipulating the facts and telling the hospital that my nephew fell on his own and that it was an accident. I was expecting that my sister and his boyfriend would take some measures to stop this bullying, but they didn't. They didn't even scold the bully. When my nephew returned home from the hospital, his bully started his job again. After his return from the hospital, my parents and I went to see him. When he came out of his room, his bully came running and pulled down his pants in front of all the guests. My nephew was already in pain, so he started crying. My sister didn't say anything to the bully. Instead, she started scolding her son, asking why he came out of the room. It was really disgusting, so I confronted my sister and asked why she was not standing up for her son and why she had put her son through all this. She said I didn't understand, which made me very angry, and I left her home. And while leaving, I made it clear that if she didn't stand up for her son, I would, and that if I found out that my nephew was bullied again, I would go to the police, and I would not care that she was my sister. After about a fortnight following this incident, my sister and her boyfriend announced that they were going to get engaged. I was surprised to hear this decision, as were my parents. We were expecting our sister to end her relationship with her boyfriend and stand up for his son, but she was going in the opposite direction. In response to this announcement, my nephew expressed his disapproval in public, stating that his mother was getting engaged to his bully's dad and didn't care about him. This caused my sister to be furious, and my nephew was devastated by his mom's decision to be with his bully's father, despite knowing how he would feel. I tried my best to make my sister understand that it was not a good idea, but she brushed me off, saying that I don't understand how this world works. I don't have any problem with her fiancé, and I don't care to whom she marries. I was against her decision for my nephew's welfare. I was also concerned about the future of my nieces. If her fiancé's son could bully my nephew, why wouldn't he bully my nieces in the future? Despite knowing that her decision could ruin the lives of her children, she blindly proceeded with her plan and got engaged to her boyfriend and moved in with him. My sister was adamant that she didn't want to hear any negative feedback about her decision. She believed that her son didn't have the right to control her life and that she and her fiancé would address the bullying issue. I suggested that her son needed some distance from her fiancé's son, but she argued that siblings often have conflicts and that she couldn't allow her son to choose his family. After my sister got engaged, her son ran away. He was missing for 2 weeks, and we searched everywhere for him. Finally, we found him at one of his school friends' houses. I reported my nephew's disappearance to Child Protective Services. After he was found, CPS removed him from my sister's home and placed him with his grandparents, which was his preference. I have spoken to my nephew a few times and visited him twice since he moved in with his grandparents. He has expressed that he is very content with his grandparents and does not wish to see his mom ever again. For my sister, everything is going normally. She does not care about the removal of her son from her home, and she is busy shopping for her wedding. She has chosen her fiancé over her son. I have had a fight over her choosing her fiancé over her son, but she is not ready to listen to anyone. Last week, I received an invitation to attend my sister's wedding, but I responded with a no. I made it clear that I would not attend the wedding after everything that had happened. My sister asked me to set aside our family troubles and attend, saying that if I didn't, she would cut all ties with me. I told her firmly that I would not attend no matter what, and that I would choose my nephew over her. My parents were also against my sister's decision, but now they are ready to attend her wedding, and they say I should also change my mind and attend the wedding. When I refused, my mom said I was being an AH. I am clear that I am not an a-hole. I just want your opinion. So, am I an AH for not attending my sister's wedding? OP is not an AH, and the way she stood up for her nephew is impressive. OP's sister is insane. Let's now move on to another am I the butt scenario, where a rude son insults his mother because she asked his wife to cook at a family gathering. He wants his sisters and brothers' wives to cook in the kitchen, while his wife enjoys with him and other family members. I, 27-year-old male, have been married to my wife, Olivia, 25-year-old female, for 7 years and married for 6 months. I come from a conservative family, but I am not conservative myself. On the other hand, my wife comes from a liberal family, which caused some tension between our families, and my wife's parents didn't attend our wedding. As a result, my wife is not close to her family, while I have a good relationship with mine. After our marriage, my wife expressed a desire to live near my family so she could experience a larger family dynamic. We currently reside 15 minutes away from my family and frequently attend family gatherings and events. Despite the initial challenges, we both enjoy spending time with my family. During family gatherings, but not at weddings, etc., women are expected to do the cooking, while the men engage in other activities. My grandma, uncles, etc. hold strong beliefs about these gender roles. However, my dad doesn't. Despite this, my mom always joins the family females in the kitchen during family gatherings. Our father himself cooks and has taught me and my brothers how to. So, I am competent in the kitchen thanks to my father. But I am not a professional chef and also not as competent a cook as my wife. Despite my family's traditional views, I have always found them strange and never personally believed in them. I made sure to communicate this to my wife early on in our relationship, even when we were just dating. My wife's culinary skills are truly impressive. She was always popular with her roommates in college, and after our marriage, she became popular in the family. Whenever we attended a family gathering, our family women asked my wife to join them in the kitchen. However, when her culinary creations received praise from the family members, particularly men, our family women started being rude to my wife. My wife wanted to bond with them, so she made an effort to fit in. However, I didn't like seeing her treated that way. So, last weekend, I suggested that she join us men instead of staying in the kitchen. She was hesitant at first, but ended up having a great time with us. This upset the women in the family, who insisted that I should make my wife cook with them as she was supposed to. They said I shouldn't allow her to skip cooking duties. I stood my ground and told them that I supported my wife's decision to stay with us because of how unfairly they treated her. After this drama, my father and I assured her that she would not be treated this way. And my father told her she didn't need to join women in the kitchen and that she should join our men's company during family gathering. When my mom learned about it, my mom confronted me and said that my wife would have to join other family women in the kitchen. It infuriated me a lot, but I controlled my anger initially and calmly told my mother that I love my wife and don't want her to be treated the way our family women have been treating her. But my mom started insisting that no matter what, my wife must join girls in the kitchen. When I felt it was going beyond limits, I told her clearly that if she had any problem with it, my wife and I would not join family gatherings anymore, and then we left for home. My mom is now saying that I should apologize to her for insulting her. Otherwise, she would cut all ties with me forever. I told my father that I didn't insult my mom. I just told her facts, and if she wanted to cut all ties with me, let her do. I will never apologize for a situation where I am right. So, AITAH? OP is not an AH, but he could have handled the situation in a better way. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries. Welcome to r/relationship, where OP slept with her colleague while drunk after her husband moved to another state for a job. Upon returning home, she realized her mistake, cut ties with her colleague, and moved with her husband, vowing never to cheat again. Now, OP is torn about whether to confess her infidelity to her husband. It is a very intriguing story. Let's dive into it. I, 29-year-old female, have been with my husband, Henry, 31-year-old male, for 3 years and married for 2 years, and we have no children. We live in California, and we are originally from Chicago. My husband is an engineer, and I am a teacher. 6 months ago, we were in our hometown. My husband was working a job with a local firm, and I was working at a school. My husband landed a job in California with a multinational company. It was a great achievement, and I was very happy for my husband. We decided that after 6 to 7 months of my husband joining that job, I would also move to California. It was due to my job because I could not just leave my job as I had a contract with the school where I was teaching. However, when my husband moved to California, I started feeling lonely and began drinking daily, desperately wanting companionship. At that low point, I started hanging out with a colleague who had recently gone through a breakup, and he took me to bed within just a week of our friendship. When I returned home, I realized I was on the wrong path and that I was cheating on my husband. The same day, I cut all ties with that man and promised myself I would never see him again. The next day, I broke my contract with the school I was working for, despite the financial burden it incurred. I contacted my husband and told him that I didn't want to live without him, informed him of breaking the contract with the school, and expressed my desire to move to California as soon as possible. My husband had no problem with it, and within 2 weeks, I moved with him. Now, I am happy after moving with my husband, but I am troubled by thoughts of past infidelity. I love my husband with my whole heart, and I wanted to tell him sooner, but I have been terrified every time I go to bring it up. I feel like I owe him the honesty, while at the same time worrying that telling him will ruin things for us, even though I know in my heart I would never cheat on him or involve myself in those behaviors again. I have received advice from friends going both ways. Tell him or don't tell him. He has been cheated on many times in the past, so I worry that sharing this information will make him doubt my loyalty. Even though I am committed to our relationship, I am torn between protecting him from my past and being transparent with him. Giving an opinion on this is very difficult because it involves multiple and contrasting behaviors. However, one thing is crystal clear. OP's cheating on her husband was wrong and cannot be justified. However, revealing this to her husband could potentially ruin their marriage. I suggest not telling him right away, but addressing it later on. This is a practical suggestion, especially considering that OP's husband has been cheated on before. Additionally, since this cheating was a mistake and OP is committed to not cheating again, it may be best to handle the situation carefully. Let's move to an Am I the AH, where OP brings an uninvited guest to a destination wedding, and the maid of honor says OP is an AH for doing this because the guest was not happy with it. However, the guest didn't say anything about it, and the maid of honor wants to create a scene. Last week, I, 26-year-old female, received an invitation to the destination wedding of my former colleague Olivia, with whom I wasn't very close. I also didn't know the groom. I was surprised to be invited. It was an intimate wedding ceremony. Only around 100 guests were invited, and I may have been a second-round invitee, so I didn't receive a +1, and I didn't think much about it because I was already surprised that I was invited. The wedding destination was far enough away to require a 2-night stay at a hotel if I arrived the night before. I ultimately decided to go and booked a hotel room for my stay. However, they only had large rooms available due to it being a popular wedding destination. I thought it would be a good idea to invite my boyfriend to join me. This way, we could share the room and take turns driving to and from the destination. The plan was to have dinner together on the night we arrived, explore new places, and enjoy a nice breakfast before heading back home. While I attended the wedding events, he could relax in the hotel room or by the pool. The wedding was wonderful, but after it ended, the maid of honor, who I'm closer to than the bride, was chatting with me as I walked back to my room. Instead of searching for my keycard, I knocked on the door. When my boyfriend opened the door, the maid of honor just greeted him and walked off. I didn't think it was a big deal or anything. A few days later, the maid of honor contacted me to express that it was awkward and uncomfortable for me to have invited him to the hotel. She mentioned that it made everyone feel bad and weird that he was there waiting for the wedding to end when they hadn't invited him. We were both a bit surprised by the situation. No one knew he was there because his presence wasn't mentioned at the wedding. It wasn't a secret, and we didn't think it was a big deal if people knew. He had only met the bride and groom a few times, and had no problem not being invited to the intimate wedding. It's worth noting that I was the only guest without a +1, and I never requested one for him. I have no clue if the maid of honor told the bride, and if the bride also thinks this was inappropriate. If she hasn't, I really don't want to contact her during her honeymoon to start drama. OP is not an AH, and here the maid of honor is overreacting. One thing is that the journey was so long, OP should have been given a +1 so that she could have someone accompany her on that long journey. It is the fault of the host that they didn't give OP a +1. The other point is that the maid of honor should not care about who was invited and who was not. If the host had an issue with it, then OP needed to address it. Even that would not make you an AH. Just enjoy your life and ignore the maid of honor. Let's move to another Am I the A-hole, where OP's daughter's lunch has been stolen multiple times, but OP thinks it is not a big deal, and he is not willing to complain to the principal because he believes the person taking the lunches may need the food more than his daughter does. However, OP's wife says she would complain to the principal because the children who steal their daughter's food will bully her in the future, and she calls OP an AH for not standing up for his daughter. I, a 35-year-old male, have been working online, and my wife Emma, a 34-year-old female, is a nurse. We have 2 children, Ava, 10F, and John, 8M. My wife used to work in Atlanta, but 2 months ago, she landed a high-paying job in DC. Since I work online, the location doesn't matter to me, so we decided to move to DC and enrolled our children in a nearby school. Our kids have been attending for about 3 weeks now. Since enrolling, our daughter has been experiencing a recurring issue of her lunch being stolen multiple times a week. The school provides breakfast and lunch, but we pay for it. We always ensure there is money in their accounts in case they prefer to have school lunch instead of what we pack for them. This way, our daughter doesn't go hungry even if her lunch is stolen. My wife works the night shift, so I handle getting the kids ready for school in the morning, including packing their lunches. I always label everything with their names. My daughter has told me that her lunch has been stolen a few times. Initially, I suggested she eat the school lunch, but she doesn't always like it. To solve the problem, I now pack 2 lunches for her and advise her to keep one hidden in her backpack, instead of leaving it with the other lunches in the classroom. I also talked to my daughter's teacher, who assured me that she would be more attentive, but unfortunately, the problem persists. Additionally, my daughter is not the only child whose meal has been stolen. There are some other children facing the same issue. Last weekend, My daughter told my wife about her lunch being stolen and how I tried to solve it. Upon hearing this, my wife became upset and said she was disappointed in how I approached the problem. She mentioned that she would speak to the principal and escalate the issue to the school board if it is not resolved. My wife believes the person stealing from our daughter has a personal vendetta against her, and that if we don't take any action now, they might bully our daughter in the future. However, I have a different perspective on the situation. I believe the person taking the lunches may need the food more than my daughter does. If their family could afford packed lunches, they would probably provide them. The same goes for funding a school lunch account. I think the child taking the lunches is hungry, and I don't want to worsen their situation by escalating this matter. If packing an extra lunch for my daughter means that a hungry child gets a good meal, I am more than willing to cover the cost. However, my wife doesn't agree with me, and she is insisting on discussing the matter with the principal. My wife says I should discuss the matter with the principal because she is typically sleeping during the day when the kids are in school. I told her that if she wanted to escalate the matter, she would have to attend to it herself. Upon my refusal, my wife started arguing with me and said that I was not protecting our daughter and that I was being an AH. However, my point is that we should not escalate the matter, as our daughter is not going hungry, and whoever is taking her lunches isn't either, which I'm fine with. OP is being a bit of an AH because his approach is not practical. Although his desire to feed hungry children is commendable, the way he wants to help them is nonsensical, and he is doing this at the cost of his daughter's welfare. OP's wife is correct in pointing out that the children who steal their daughter's lunch would bully her if OP and his wife do not stand up for their daughter. If OP truly wants to help the less fortunate kids in his daughter's class, he should consider paying extra to the school so that they can provide for those children. Welcome to Am I the A-hole?, where OP's father made an unfair decision by giving all of their property to him, leaving his brother with just one factory, despite the fact that OP's brother dedicated his entire life to managing his father's business. OP is already well off and doesn't need any property from his parents, so he wants to give all the property to his brother, but OP's wife is against this. It is a very interesting story. Let's dive into it. I, 36-year-old male, come from Mississippi and grew up there. I always hated living in my hometown because of poor infrastructure and lack of glamour. I always wanted to live in a big, developed city. So, when I turned 18, I moved to California. My parents were against this decision, and they wanted me to work for our family's garment factories, but I wanted to work in IT. Finally, they had to agree with me, and I moved to California. After getting my degree, I started working for an IT company. After saving enough and getting an experience of 7 years, I launched my own company, and now I have a fairly large and successful business. My average revenue is much more than the combined income of all of our father's garment factories. I have only one brother, Jack, 38 years old. He has been managing the family's factories and has always been with our father. However, he has never married and has no plans to do so in the future. He has had a girlfriend for the last 10 years, but he also does not want to have any children. Also, he is not ambitious like me, but he is a nice guy and has always been good to me. 3 years ago, my mother passed away, and just 20 days later, my father also passed away in a car accident. This left my brother Jack and me as the beneficiaries of my father's factories. I didn't need anything from my parents because they had helped me during my education, and they also contributed a lot to setting up my company. I was grateful for all this. But to my surprise, as my brother and I sat down with the attorney to discuss our father's will, we discovered that I was left with 2 garment factories, and my brother was left with only 1 factory and no other property. The only reason I can fathom behind this decision is that unlike Jack, I have 2 children. Though the split of inheritance was in my favor, it was ridiculous. Since, unlike me, my brother actually lived with my father and helped him manage all the factories. If I think as an unbiased judge, I would say 2 factories should have gone to my brother, and I should be given none or 1. I saw that my brother was also shaken up by the decision, so I reassured him that I found it absurd as well, and I don't mind forfeiting the land to him. My brother said I didn't have to do that, but I insisted. After some back and forth on the topic, we mutually agreed to settle this between ourselves at a later date, when everything would be transferred under our names as our parents intended. When I informed my wife, Amelia, 35-year-old female, of my decision to give up my inheritance, she became furious. She argued that my decision was impulsive and short-sighted, as the garment factories are worth a fortune, and I was giving them away without a second thought. I told my wife that even though the factories are worth a fortune, my father's decision was unfair, and that my brother deserves them. My wife said that it didn't matter if my brother deserves them or not. They are legally mine, so I should not give them to my brother, and that I should think of our children who might need them in the future. When she continuously insisted, I said, "Then I will keep one factory and transfer the other to my brother." However, my wife is adamant that I should keep both factories and should not give anything to my brother. My wife is not speaking to me now until I reconsider my decision. I need to hear some unbiased opinions to see if I'm in the wrong here. OP is not an AH, so I will give him 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. If he were not financially well off, I would give him 2 out of 5 for not thinking of his wife and children. He is well off and doesn't need money, so he can give it to the person who is deserving and is in need of it. As of his wife, I would give her 1 out of 5 on AH scale because she is somehow justified here. Who does not love money, right? But the way she handled it is manipulative, hence the score of 1 out of 5. Now, the real culprit, OP's father, I will give him 3 out of 5 because he was very petty in distributing inheritance. If your son gives his entire life to build your empire, you cannot rob him of inheritance just because of one life decision. He should have been fair and at least split the inheritance in half. Let's now move on to another Am I the A-hole post where OP has taken in his drug-addicted son from his ex-wife on the condition that he would pay rent and contribute to household expenses. OP is working for the welfare of his son and helping him save for the future. OP's son has saved around $8,000 in the last 4 months and has been clean for the same amount of time. However, OP's ex-wife is saying OP is a jerk for charging his son to live in his home, and she is defaming OP on social media. Let's dive into the story to see what OP and his son do next. I, 43-year-old male, was married to my first wife Olivia for 7 years, and we have a son, Henry, now a 24-year-old male, together. We got separated when I caught her cheating on me. At that time, our son Henry was 13 years old, and the court awarded custody to me because my ex-wife had a history of drug addiction. After my divorce from my first wife, I remarried, and I now have 3 children from my second marriage, 4M, 7M, 11F. My second wife is a stay-at-home mom, and I am the sole breadwinner for my family. Our son Henry always saw me as a villain because his mom had been brainwashing him against me. He was not happy with the custody arrangement and wanted to live with his mom, who was not willing to take him in. After being disappointed by his mother, he ran away from home multiple times, but I always brought him back. I covered all of his expenses, but my ex-wife didn't contribute financially. When he turned 18, he moved out to live with a friend. I offered to pay for his college and help him start his independent life, but he declined, stating that he wanted to make his own way. With no other choice, I respected his decision, and he moved out to live with his friend. After leaving, he stopped contacting me, and I was the one who reached out to offer my help. After enduring a year of his distant behavior, I made the decision to stop contacting him and maintain no further relationship with him. Deep in my heart, I was expecting him to contact me, but he never did. After 6 years, 5 months ago, my son Henry contacted me and asked me for a meeting. I didn't want to meet him, but after his continuous requests, I agreed. When I met him, he told me that he could not continue his studies after moving out because he was unable to find a stable job and had fallen into drug addiction. He told me that he was trying to get rid of his drug addiction, and for all this, he needed my help. Though I had decided not to have any relationship with my son, I had to agree to take him in because I did not want to leave my son alone in that difficult time. However, I made it clear to him that he would have to pay rent and contribute to other household expenses because it was not possible for me to bear all the expenses as I have my own family, and my children from my second wife are in school. My son had no problem with it, and he moved in with me on this arrangement. However, when my ex-wife learned about it, she started criticizing me, saying that I was charging our own son, and for this, I was an a-hole. I told my ex that though I was charging our son, at least I was helping him get rid of drugs, and I am doing a lot for the welfare of our son, and she was just barking from outside. My son has been clean for the last 4 months and is working a job from which he earns quite well. Despite paying the rent and household expenses, he has saved around $8,000 USD, which he could not save in the 6 years when he was not living with me. My ex-wife has been continuously criticizing me on social media and telling all of our relatives that I am a jerk for charging rent to our son. She has posted 5 posts with my pictures and derogatory captions to tell people that I was charging rent to our son. Many people on social media are supporting her. When I discussed it with my son, he said that he had no problem with the rent and his contribution to household expenses. He told me that he was grateful for my help because I was working for his welfare and that his mom was doing wrong and that we should take action against her. Yesterday, my nephew Jack, who is studying law, told me that I should upload a video in which my son and I clarify the arrangement between us and that we should also file a defamation case against my ex-wife. When I discussed this with my son, he told me that he was ready to record a video to clear my name and that he would support me in the defamation case. I have always been a calm person and prefer to avoid confrontation with others. Therefore, before making any decisions, I would like to hear the opinions of you Redditors. I have 2 questions. Am I the jerk for charging my son rent? Secondly, should I take any legal steps against my ex-wife? OP is not the AH, and I would give him 0 out of 5 on the AH scale because OP's son can afford rent and contribute to household expenses. If he couldn't afford it, I would give him 3 out of 5. As for OP's wife, she is a big AH. I would give her 3.5 out of 5 because she didn't support her son when he needed her the most, and now instead of supporting her son, she is criticizing the person who is supporting him. OP's wife is defaming him out of spite and jealousy. I recommend OP's wife to get a life and be a better person. Petty people can never be satisfied with their life. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow with some more spicy fries. Welcome to an Am I the A-hole, where a ruthless brother asks his stepsister to change her name if she wants to have a relationship with him. He does this because their father cheated on his mother 16 years ago, and this demand of the brother has messed up the new family of his father, AITAH, for asking my half-sister to change her name if she wants a relationship with me. I, 30-year-old male, had a sister named Selena who passed away from cancer 16 years ago at the age of 6. She had been ill for 2 years, but my father, David, now 56-year-old male, didn't care about taking her to the hospital because he doesn't believe in doctors or medicines and is a big superstitious. He spent his earnings on alcohol and never paid for Selena's medical bills. My mother, Helen, now deceased, struggled to make ends meet with her income, which was not enough to cover my sister's health expenses. I was also a child at the time and couldn't support my family financially. Furthermore, we had no relatives willing to help us financially, mainly due to my father's behavior. He had borrowed money from most of our relatives and never repaid them, leading to conflicts with those who asked for their money back. Some of my maternal relatives eventually agreed to pay for Selena's treatment, but it was too late, and her illness had progressed too far for recovery. Selena's death, therefore, was not unexpected, but it left my mother heartbroken. After Selena's passing, my mother was devastated and unable to handle the funeral arrangements. My father, who was out of town at the time, seemed unaffected by the news and showed no interest in attending the funeral. He arrived very late at the funeral. Despite knowing his lack of responsibility and commitment to the family, his indifference was still disappointing. Upon learning this, my grandfather, now deceased, stepped in to take care of the funeral arrangements. It was a shameful and humiliating moment for us to have a father who could not fulfill his duties in such a difficult time. I feel that Grandpa was also ashamed of having such a useless son. The first year after Selena's passing was rough. All my mom did was cry. However, my father resented any mention of Selena and continued his behavior of disregard towards his family and abusing alcohol. Then, 1 year after Selena's death, my father told my mother that he had impregnated another woman, Isabella, now 51-year-old female, and wanted a divorce. This news was awful for my mother and me. When asked why he wanted a divorce, he said that my mother was cheating on him, and this alleged cheating led him to abuse alcohol and indulge in relationships with other girls. He claimed that my mother was responsible for distorting their relationship, and he even cast doubt on my late sister's paternity. However, he utterly failed to provide even a single piece of evidence to support his claims, and all his claims proved false. Later on, we came to know that the woman he had impregnated was a prostitute whom he met in a brothel in Nevada. It was disgusting that my father was leaving my mother and me for a prostitute. Despite all interventions by family members, he proceeded with his decision. and had a divorce with my mother. After my parents' divorce, my father married that prostitute, and my mother and I moved in with my maternal aunt Evelyn, 55-year-old woman. She is a working woman who never married and generously agreed to let us live with her and help finance my schooling. Following the divorce, my parents reached a mutual agreement, with court direction, that allowed my father to have me stay with him for a week every month, and he was also required to cover half of my expenses until I turned 18. This arrangement allowed us to start a new life after the divorce. After 6 months of the divorce, my father had a daughter with Isabella, and he named her Selena. I will refer to her as my stepsister from now on because I don't want to use the name of my sister for anyone else. This came as a shock to my mother and me. We requested him to change the name of his new daughter because the name held emotional significance for us, but he refused to change it, saying it was the name of his favorite daughter. My mother reminded him of his behavior towards Selena and asked him how shamefully he called Selena his favorite. She asked where he was when she died, helpless. He actually named his new daughter Selena in a failed attempt to gain sympathy from our relatives, but they knew his true nature very well. After his refusal, my mother sought legal advice on whether two half-siblings could share the same name, only to find out that there were no laws preventing it. When we failed to convince or compel him to change the name of his new daughter, I told my dad that I would never recognize this new child as my sister until they changed her name. As they flatly refused to change her name, I told everyone in my social circle that I had one sister who had passed away, and I never recognized my stepsister as my sister. Not only this, I had a heated argument with my stepmother and called her a prostitute in front of my father. Upon hearing this, she told me to get out of his home. After this argument, I stopped visiting my father. However, we live in the same city and sometimes encounter each other in the market or at family functions. My late grandfather and paternal relatives didn't cut ties with my mother and me and have always been good to us because they knew the fact that my father was responsible for all this mess. Moreover, my stepsister knows I am her half-brother. She has attempted to communicate with me multiple times, but I never responded mainly because of emotional attachment to my late sister. After graduating from high school, I received a full-ride scholarship to attend a prestigious college and later a university. I worked hard, made smart choices, and achieved financial success and social status. Fast forward to now, I have a really good job, a home that I have fully paid off in just 2 years, and am doing very well for myself. However, in this journey, I lost my mother 9 years ago. 6 months ago, I got engaged to my girlfriend Erica, 29-year-old female, and I also have a close bond with her younger sister Emily, 16-year-old female. I have always treated her like my sister, Selena. During our engagement ceremony, I publicly announced that Emily is my second sister, and I often took my fiancé and sister-in-law out for dinners and on tours. We have traveled to 3 states since our engagement, and we frequently share our pictures together on social media. Through some of her friends, my stepsister came to know about the announcement I made at my engagement ceremony and saw our pictures together on social media. Following this, she started making frequent efforts to talk to me. After getting her first mobile, she sent me requests on almost all social media platforms I use to connect, but I just ignored her requests. Failing to connect with me on social media, last month, she approached me in the gym and asked why I never call or see her, why I can make time for Emily and take her to so many cool places, but never for her. She also said that she was my biological sister, at least from our father's side. I was surprised to learn about her expectations from me. However, without going into details, I told her that she knew the answers to all her questions very well and asked her to leave the gym respectfully. She left the gym, but in the evening, she reached out to me on social media with the same questions. Initially, I didn't respond and then blocked her due to her persistent inquiries. A week later, a few cousins told me that she was really upset about my behavior towards her and the announcement I made at our engagement. I was confused and thought why she was behaving as if she didn't know anything about our past. When I discussed the matter with my fiancé, she advised me to talk to my stepsister. Finally, after some encouragement from her, I unblocked my stepsister and had a long video chat with her last week. I told her everything that had happened in the past and also clarified the reality of her name. Both my stepsister and I were shocked that she didn't know that Selena was my late sister's actual name. It was perhaps because all our relatives and my father referred to my late sister, if ever, by her nickname. Then I asked her why she didn't know about what our father did to my mother and me. She told me reluctantly that her mother had told her that my mother left our father for her alleged boyfriend, who later dumped her, and she had to move in with my aunt. Though listening to all this was shocking for me, me. I didn't interrupt her because now I wanted to know the reality. Then she told me that she had contacted me because she thought we should forget the past and move on together as a family. Though she was surprised and shocked to know the reality, she still wanted a relationship with me. However, I told her that I could not forgive our father and her mother for what they had done to my mother, sister, and me. I told her that I could have a sibling relationship with her, but the condition was that she would have to change her name. Yesterday, I came to know that stepsister and her mom had a fight, and stepsister blamed her parents for screwing up a relationship with me, and now she's considering legally changing her name when she turns 18. My father and her prostitute wife are pointing fingers at me, and I'm left wondering whether AITAH for asking my half-sister to change her name if she wants a relationship with me. What do the Mac Reddit fans think? Is the OP an AH or not? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to Mac Reddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries. Welcome to a very spicy Am I the A-hole post, where OP's father and uncles accuse him of creating a rift between the family when he refuses to have any relationship with his stepmom and father, claiming his father and stepmom were responsible for the divorce of his mother. It is full of family drama, so let's dive into it. I, a 22-year-old male, have been estranged from my father for over 2 years because he was a toxic father and cheated on my mom with his colleague. Now, my stepmom wants me to have a relationship with her and my father. Last night, at a family party, my stepmom approached me and requested that I come over for dinner at their home and expressed her interest in getting to know me and spending time together. I tried to avoid her, but she kept approaching me repeatedly, making me uncomfortable. So, I finally left the party, which has led to my father and his siblings criticizing me and saying that I am creating a rift in the family. Let me tell you the story in detail. I was the only child of my parents, and I witnessed them fighting throughout my life. Initially, I didn't know the reason for their fights, and there was no one I could ask. As I grew older, I discovered that my father was cheating on my mom with a colleague, and these fights were all about that cheating. After many violent arguments and fights, my parents finally separated, which was a great moment of relief for me. Following the divorce, I, then around 17, was placed in my mother's custody, but I had to visit my father's home for a week every month. This week of each month was always the most difficult for me. While my father never abused me or spoke negatively about me or my mother in my presence, I harbored deep resentment towards him because I had grown up in a toxic environment due to his actions and because he cheated on my mom. After 8 months of my parents' divorce, my father married his colleague, with whom he had been cheating on my mom. Despite my father's insistence, I didn't attend his second wedding. When he announced the marriage, he called me to inform me of the wedding date and asked me to be present. I replied, "Okay, I will be there," but in my head, I had already decided not to attend. I wanted to block him, but I couldn't because I was still a minor legally, so I started ignoring calls and messages from my father. My presence at his wedding was not much important to my father, so after 2 or 3 days, he stopped calling and texting me. After his wedding, he contacted me again and asked me to come over and see my stepmom, but I avoided going for one reason or another. My father knew that I was just a few months away from turning 18, and he didn't force me. Once I turned 18, it was over, and I didn't need to go to my father's house, and I have not been to my father's since then. Now, my father has 2 children from his second wife, 2M and 3F, and I have not seen my father since his wedding. I know all this because I still see my extended family. Last week, I was at a family party where my father and his wife were also present. During the party, Dad's wife approached me and expressed her desire to talk. I declined and walked away. She tried to talk to me again, but I walked away once more. On her third attempt, she spoke before I could leave and mentioned that she wants her children to know their brother and hopes I can be a part of their family. She expressed interest in getting to know me, inviting me over for dinner and spending time together. She used the "we're family now" approach, but I chose to leave early to avoid dealing with the situation. Dad's siblings, who believe we should forgive Dad, were upset with me for leaving early as it led to the rest of the family turning against Dad. They felt that I could have spoken to Dad's wife instead of avoiding her, as she had not done anything wrong. My decision to leave was seen as an excessive and immature reaction that caused family disharmony. Am I in the wrong here? OP is not an AH for not wanting to have any relationship with his stepmom and father. However, he could have handled things in a better manner. OP deserves 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. However, OP's father is an AH for creating a toxic environment at home and not caring about his son, so I would give him 2 out of 5 on the AH scale. Let's move on to another Am I the A-hole, where OP refuses to attend his mom's birthday party because she refuses to invite OP's Russian girlfriend. I, 32-year-old male, have been in a relationship with my Russian girlfriend, Kira, 31-year-old female, for 2 years. We have been working together since her arrival in the USA. I come from a white family, and during the Cold War between the USSR and the USA, my grandfather and 2 of his brothers were in the USA. As a result, my grandparents, my father, and his siblings always harbored a strong dislike for Russians. My mother shares this sentiment as well. However, I personally do not judge people based on their nationality. When I form relationships, whether romantic or platonic, I only consider whether the person is a good individual. I strongly believe in valuing people for who they are as individuals. When I entered into this relationship, and my parents learned that my girlfriend was Russian, they didn't react positively. They even suggested that I reconsider my decision. However, I didn't care about their suggestion, and honestly speaking, my parents didn't try to force things on me at that time. After around 6 months of our relationship, I introduced my girlfriend to my parents. The meeting was casual and not too warm, but it was not as cold as I expected it to be. My girlfriend also visited my family a few more times, but she never attended any of our family events because she is often out of the country on work trips. It might be a coincidence that she didn't attend any of our family events. However, on this birthday party of my mom, she was also in the USA. It is a custom in our family that we often have destination events, destination weddings, destination birthday parties, destination dinners, etc. You can say that this custom is a pretext to have small family trips, whatever. Next week is my birthday party at a resort, 3 hours away from our home. While preparing the guest list, my mom wrote down the name of my younger brother's girlfriend, but not mine. When I pointed out that she had forgotten to include my girlfriend's name, she insisted that only family members were invited. Confused, I asked her to clarify, and she explained that she didn't consider my girlfriend part of the family, so she didn't invite her. I argued that if my brother's girlfriend was invited, why not mine? After some lame excuses, my mom finally admitted that she didn't invite my girlfriend because she is Russian, and she doesn't like Russians. This made me lose it completely. While we were arguing, my father entered the room and asked what was going on. My mom told him that I was insisting on inviting my girlfriend to my mom's birthday party. When I tried to clear things up, my father completely dismissed me, telling me to shut up. I told my parents that if my girlfriend was not invited to the birthday party, I would also not attend. I told them that it was totally unfair and discriminatory of them to not invite her to the party just because she was Russian, and they don't like Russians. After some time, my brother reached out to me and said that my behavior was not justifiable and that I should respect our parents' choices, and that if they were not comfortable with my girlfriend, why was I forcing them to invite her to our mom's birthday party? I was stunned by these arguments of my brother. I told him that it was not about choices, it was straight discrimination, and it cannot be justified. My brother wanted to argue with me, but I requested him to leave me alone. After thoroughly recalling and thinking about my behavior towards my girlfriend, since I entered into a relationship with her, I finally decided that I would not attend my mom's birthday party until she invites my girlfriend to the party. Now, I am at my own apartment, thinking how rude and discriminatory my parents are, and I am disappointed with them. I am writing on Reddit just to clarify that I am not the AH. What do you think? Am I? OP is not an AH, and his refusal to attend his mom's birthday party is 100% justified. So, I would give him 0 out of 5 on the AH scale. OP's parents' discriminatory behavior is shameful and disappointing. How can they just exclude their son's girlfriend from an event just because she is Russian? For this discriminatory behavior, I would give them 4 out of 5 scores on the AH scale. If they had also not invited their younger son's girlfriend to the party, I would have given them 1 out of 5, and this score would be for excluding their son's girlfriends from the family event. As for OP's brother, he deserves at least 2 out of 5 for supporting his discriminatory behavior. If you like the stories I brought you, just hit the like button, share them as much as you can, and don't forget to subscribe to MacReddit for a daily dose. Bye bye, see you tomorrow with some more spicy fries.